1 hour a day. It sounds so simple that you might overlook it. But if you take a closer, more honest look at your own life, you'll realize something clear. You've never truly devoted 1 hour a day solely to building yourself. Not to rest, not to entertain, but to grow, to do something that makes you stronger, wiser, more disciplined. We often talk about change as if it requires a complete revolution. But the truth is, it begins with 1 hour you dare to hold onto for yourself, even when the world is pulling you in every direction. That hour isn't magical. It doesn't shine. No one claps when you begin, but you will feel the shift gradually from within. Because what matters isn't the length of time, it's how you use it. 1 hour lived with intention each day is entirely different from 16 hours drifting in reaction, chaos, and chasing things that aren't truly important. That hour is how you say to yourself, I am valuable and I am worth investing in. Maybe you once thought that hard work alone would make everything better. But if you're working hard in the wrong direction, if you never stop to learn, to adjust, to upgrade yourself, then all that hard work only leaves you exhausted, not further ahead. And what I want you to understand is this. You don't need a perfect plan. You don't need to wait for more time, more money, or others' approval. You just need to start with 1 hour. Hold on to it, protect it, live it fully. That hour could be the time you read something that makes you think more deeply, or write down thoughts that have never been named, or exercise, or learn a skill you've been putting off because you thought you weren't ready, or simply sit in stillness and reflect, undistracted. Because in today's world, that silence, that presence is rare. And it gives you something nothing else can, clarity. Clarity about yourself, clarity about what you want, clarity about what's holding you back. Most people don't fail because they lack talent. They fail because they never learn how to give time to what truly matters. They wake up, turn on their phones, react to messages, emails, interruptions. They spend the whole day doing urgent but meaningless tasks. And then they wonder why they feel empty, why they're always busy, but never feel like they're truly living their own lives. 1 hour a day is how you regain direction. It doesn't need to be grand. You don't have to post it on social media. You just have to do it every day, whether it's Monday or Sunday. Whether you're tired or energized, whether you feel motivated or not. That's real commitment. And that's what makes a difference. That 1 hour, if used right, will make you unrecognizable after a few months, not because you change overnight, but because you become the version of yourself you could have always been, only before you hadn't prioritized it. I'm not saying this as theory. I've done it, and I've seen how it changed the way I think, the way I feel, the way I make decisions. I used to be like most people, busy, scattered, always feeling like I was short on time. But I wasn't short on time. I was just scattering it on things that didn't help me grow. And when I started keeping just 1 hour a day for myself, every single day, I realized a life of intention doesn't need to begin with a crisis. It begins with a choice, a daily choice. 1 hour, repeated, consistent, non-negotiable, no excuses. You don't need inspiration to start. Inspiration comes after you start. You don't need others to understand or agree. They'll see the results later. You don't need the perfect environment. You need one clear decision that you won't let this life pass by unconsciously, and you won't let your potential be buried by a lack of commitment. 1 hour a day, no one can do it for you, but if you do it long enough, you won't be the person who needs advice anymore. You'll be the one inspiring yourself. And that's the first step to a life that cannot be copied. You don't need to start with everything. Just start with one thing. 1 hour a day for you, because of you, by your own choice. The rest, time will prove. Have you ever stopped and asked yourself, who's really running your day? Is it you? Or is it the phone you reach for first thing in the morning? Is it you? Or is it the endless list of urgent tasks that do nothing to bring you closer to the life you want? This question isn't comfortable, but it must be asked, because if you don't master time, time will master you. And when that happens, you lose the most valuable thing you have, the power of choice. Every morning when you wake up, you're standing at a crossroads. One path is conscious action, leading your day through deliberate choices. The other is unconscious reaction, letting everything else pull you along with the current. And many people have lived their entire lives on that second path without ever realizing it. It begins with a seemingly harmless act, hitting the snooze button. Just 5 more minutes, they think. But those 5 minutes aren't just time. They're a signal sent to your subconscious. I'll wait. I'll let another part of me make the decision. And then everything that follows in the day moves in that same spirit. Hesitation, reaction, delay, lack of control. The more you begin your day in delay, the more likely you are to be swept into decisions that aren't truly yours. Habits, moods, social media, other people's agendas, and gradually you lose the ability to recognize what really matters to you. You don't need to be someone who wakes up at 4 a.m. You don't need to follow anyone else's routine. But you do need to rise and reclaim the first moments of your day. That's not extra time. That's the foundation. The first decision each morning shapes the rest of your day. If you choose to delay, your whole day will be soaked in hesitation. If you choose to act, your day carries a leading energy. And the miracle is this: just by changing how you start your day, the entire structure of your mind begins to shift. When I started to take back control of my mornings, there was nothing glamorous about it. Just one small decision: to wake up at the time I had promised myself, no negotiation, no compromise. And from there, I began to see something clearly. If I could overcome the smallest temptation, the warm blanket, the darkness outside, the creeping drowsiness, then I could overcome bigger things too. Day after day, that built a quiet trust within me. Not trust from anyone else, but trust from me, toward me. Real strength doesn't come from loud things. It comes from the moments when you keep your word to yourself, when no one's watching, when no one's applauding. You don't need to love waking up early, but you do need a reason strong enough not to waste another day, because you deserve a day that begins with awareness, not chaos. You deserve to feel, I'm running my life, not chasing it. And you deserve to see a version of yourself you once thought impossible, strong, clear, self-led. Let me ask you something. Are you still willing to let time slip by without reaching out to hold it? Or has the moment come for you to rise and declare that this is your life and you will no longer hand it over to anything outside yourself? If you've read this far and something I said has touched a part of you, I want you to leave a sign. Write, I'm here, or I'm ready to change in the comments. Not so I can count numbers, but so you can make a declaration to yourself. You've shown up. You're no longer hiding. You're beginning. And that in itself is deeply meaningful. Because every time you dare to rise and declare yourself, you not only light up a part of your being that's been forgotten for too long, but you also let me know that I'm not here alone. I'm grateful to you for that. Grateful for your presence, for your sincerity, for the courage to speak up in a world full of silence. We don't need to wait until everything is perfect to change. We only need to decide that we won't let time keep leading us to places where we no longer belong. Starting today, begin your day as if you're the one directing it. Choose to rise on time without compromise. Choose what matters, not what's urgent. Choose to focus on building instead of reacting to everything. And with each morning like that, you are sending a powerful message to the universe. I'm here. I'm ready. I own my life. No need for noise. But with firmness, no need to wait. Just begin. Starting with tomorrow morning for you, because of you, and through that for the life you truly deserve. each day. You wake up with an invisible resource that determines your entire life: attention. It's not time, it's not money, it's what controls both. What you direct your attention toward will expand in your life, and what you neglect will gradually fade away. But the tragedy is this: most people are having their attention stolen bit by bit without even realizing it. You're not being robbed in broad daylight. No one's snatching your focus right in front of you, and yet you still lose it through every notification, every meaningless video, every conversation you didn't need to be part of, every headline crafted to provoke a reaction, not to bring depth. And that's how you end up lost without knowing why. Don't confuse being busy with making progress. You can work all day, check off dozens of tasks, scroll through thousands of lines of content, and still be standing in the same place because you've never truly placed your attention on anything that carries weight. That's the difference between motion and progress. One leaves you tired, the other makes you grow. The question isn't, are you doing enough? The question is, are the things you're doing actually taking you to where you truly want to go? And if the answer is no, the reason usually lies in distraction. It's not that you lack ability. It's that you're caught in the trap of this era, letting your mind be pulled toward everything others want you to focus on. No one teaches you that attention is an asset, but the big companies know it. They spend billions to capture every second your eyes are on a screen. They design everything to keep you hooked for as long as possible because they know wherever your attention is, that's where the power is. And if you don't take back your attention, you're handing it over to someone else to let them define your values, your goals, even your emotions every single day. But you weren't born to live like that. You weren't born to live in reaction. You were given the power to create, to choose, to act deliberately. And that can only happen when you learn how to direct your attention with intention. 1 hour a day of focused reading, writing, learning, or building a skill will yield far more than 5 hours spent in constant interruption. Focus is not innate, it's a skill. And like a muscle, if you don't train it, it weakens. Every time you let your mind jump from task to task without purpose, you're training your brain to believe that distraction is the default. And then you wonder why you can't sit still long enough to finish something important. If you want to change your life, you don't need more time. You need to reuse the time you already have with full attention. It won't always be easy. Focusing on something meaningful requires effort. It requires sitting down and staying with the discomfort. It requires staring into the gap between what you want and what you're actually doing. But that's exactly where real change begins. When you dare to look into that gap, you stop running in circles, you stop, you see clearly, and then you choose. You choose to direct your attention toward what helps you grow, not what leads you astray. You choose to invest in yourself before exhausting your energy on the outside world. You choose to pull your attention away from comparison, from irrelevant news, from conversations that leave you feeling empty afterward. You can't focus on everything, and thankfully, you don't have to. You just need to focus on the things that truly push you toward the future you want. Ask yourself, what did you give your attention to today? Is it something you want to grow in your life? If not, then you already know what you need to do. Reset your attention standards. Disconnect from what doesn't serve you. Create space for what helps you move forward. Guard your attention the way a creator protects their ideas. Because in essence, your attention is what's shaping who you're becoming every single day. And when you learn to master it, you don't just take control of your work, you take control of your entire life. This isn't theory, it's strategy, it's foundation, it's freedom. And it begins the moment you realize you no longer want to be pulled along. You want to steer, and you are strong enough to do it hour by hour, decision by decision, every time you choose again where your focus goes. No one can do it for you, but once you begin, you won't want to go back to how things were. Because living with clear attention is a feeling that cannot be traded. It's the moment you become the driver of the wheel, not the passenger. And from there, life begins to move in the right direction. There are days that go by when by nightfall, you can't name a single thing that made you feel proud. You did so many things, moved constantly, stayed busy nonstop, but there's nothing that truly stands out, nothing to hold on to, nothing that makes you feel like you're building something with lasting meaning. That doesn't mean you're useless. It simply shows that you're living in the rhythm of reaction instead of the rhythm of creation. Each morning you wake up with a precious but invisible resource, time. And within that time, you can choose one of two paths. Either scatter it across random, fragmented things that leave no impression on you, or gather it together, pack it into one deliberate action, and build something that allows you to look back and say, today did not pass without purpose. Building doesn't have to mean creating something grand. Sometimes it begins with writing a single journal entry that helps you understand yourself better. Sometimes it's a workout you didn't want to do, but that left you feeling stronger. Sometimes it's a few lines of an idea you've been nurturing, or an hour spent learning something you once thought it was too late to begin. Whatever it is, what matters is that you do it with full presence and honest commit, because meaning doesn't arrive on its own. It's created when you choose to put your mind into something you know will leave an impact, not just on the outside world, but within the strength that lives inside you. You don't need to wait for a clear plan. You don't need a perfect system. You just need one intention. Today, I will not let this day pass without doing something that makes me feel like I'm moving forward. A small action might not change your whole life, but it can change the direction in your mind, from drifting to building, from repeating to creating, from passive to proactive. And when you repeat that day after day, week after week, month after month, that small thing becomes no longer small. It becomes identity, a person who lives to build. On the other hand, if you live each day without asking, what am I building today? You can easily slip into a state of purposeless existence. You do everything on autopilot, check off tasks, reply to messages, handle work, meet others' expectations, but never touch anything that truly belongs to you. The exhaustion doesn't come from doing too much. It comes from doing so much without knowing why. And that's when you begin to feel empty, like you're living a life shaped by circumstances instead of by your own choice. I'm not writing this to criticize you. I'm writing it because I've lived that cycle too. Ending the day with a hollow feeling, even when my schedule was packed. I once felt like I was losing something, even though I was doing my job well. And then I understood work doesn't nourish me unless it connects with something meaningful. Only when I began setting aside a portion of the day, an hour each morning, to do something tied to a long-term vision did I start to feel truly alive. Sometimes that was studying, sometimes writing, sometimes doing something uncertain, but whatever it was, I knew I was building, not just surviving. You don't need to throw everything away to start over. You just need to reserve a part of your day for what truly matters. Ask yourself each morning, if today were the last day I could live by choice, what would I want to have done? The answer may change over time, but the very act of pausing to ask, of identifying what you want to build, is already a major step in pulling yourself out of autopilot. The world won't stop to give you space. You have to create that space yourself. You have to set boundaries with things that drain your energy so you can reclaim time for what restores you from within. No one will lay out a quiet corner for you to create. You have to fight for it. You have to protect it from noise, from interruptions, from the pressure to become someone you're not meant to be. And when you begin doing that, you'll notice something interesting happen. You don't need to do more. You just need to do what's more meaningful. 1 hour of focused work on the right thing can give you more fulfillment than 12 hours of chasing someone else's agenda, because you know you're laying bricks in the foundation of the life you chose, not the life you were pushed into. The only question that remains is, what will you choose to build today? And if you're not sure yet, start with what makes you feel connected. A skill you've always wanted to master, a project you've put off for too long, a part of yourself you know has been forgotten. however small, as long as you build, however slow, as long as you don't stay still, even if no one else knows, as long as you do. Because true meaning doesn't need an audience. It just needs you to be present, honest, and committed. Every day you wake up is an opportunity no one owes you, so use it to build something you can be proud of. It doesn't have to be big. It doesn't have to be perfect. It just has to be real and yours, because that is the only way today won't pass without meaning. Learning every day isn't just for students. It's a way of life for those who want to go far. In a world where everything is constantly changing, where competition no longer lies in how much you know, but in how fast you can adapt, learning one useful thing each day is no longer a choice. It's essential if you want to build a meaningful life. Learning is not just about receiving information. True learning is a redirection of the mind. It's the act of intentionally approaching something that can change the way you think, the way you make decisions, and the way you act. Not all knowledge is useful, but just one right idea learned at the right time can shatter an entire chain of limiting beliefs that have lived inside you for years. A simple concept can completely shift the way you view failure. One sound principle can help you manage your time more effectively. One deep perspective can untie a psychological knot you once thought you'd never get past. And the beautiful thing is, you don't need to study for 6 hours. You don't need to read 10 books a month. You just need to commit to one thing. Every day you will learn something truly useful, something you can apply, something that makes you reconsider how you're living, something you can write down, practice, or pass on to someone else. That's how you turn knowledge into wisdom. A lesson only has value when it starts to change your behavior. Learning without changing your actions is just consumption. And too much consumption without transformation only leaves you tired, overwhelmed, and directionless. That's why you must filter what you learn. Choose what truly deserves space in your mind. Avoid fragmented bits of information, empty phrases, and content that makes you feel busy without actually making you deeper. Each day, you only need one right idea. Then ask yourself, where can I apply this in my life? What can it help me improve? What does it reveal about myself that I hadn't seen before? When you learn with that mindset, you're not just learning to know, you're learning to live. And that's what causes real change, not from the outside, but from the core. Sustainable transformation doesn't come from moments of sudden inspiration. It comes from quiet, profound shifts in thinking. It comes from learning how to face yourself with one good question, one powerful reason, one breakthrough realization. And you can find all of that. If each day you're willing to pause for a moment, to stop letting yourself be swept up in the rush of life and take in something that nourishes your mind, that may come from a great book, a thoughtful podcast, a sincere conversation, a mistake you just made, or even 1 minute of silence where you reflect on something that happened yesterday that you've never truly understood. Learning isn't tied to textbooks, it's tied to awareness. A good learner isn't someone who knows a lot, but someone who knows how to learn from everything, from wins and losses, from those who are better and those who make you uncomfortable. They know how to look at everything like a mirror, not to judge, but to explore. And that's what keeps them from ever being stuck in the current version of themselves. If you've ever felt stuck, slowed down, or lost, it may not be because you lack motivation, but because you stopped learning something new for too long. You're repeating the same thought patterns, the same strategies, the same old belief systems. And nothing changes on the outside when nothing is updated on the inside. What I've learned after years of living and working with people of all ages is this: it's never too late to learn what you need. Change doesn't ask how old you are. It only asks, are you still willing to learn? If the answer is yes, then you still have the potential to go far, and you still have the power to recreate yourself into a stronger, wiser, more peaceful version. Learning one useful thing each day is the commitment you give yourself that says, you won't let today be a copy of yesterday. You won't repeat a bland life. You will use the time you have to move closer to the person you want to become. That doesn't require a declaration. It requires action, a simple action. Choose to learn something useful, then live by it. And if you do that long enough, you'll surprise yourself, not because you know too much, but because you've changed from within in a way that nothing can ever take away. And that is what I wish for you every day. Quiet but steady transformation, fueled by one small but powerful commitment. Learn one useful thing every single day. There's a kind of fatigue that no amount of sleep can fix. It's the weariness that accumulates from living too long in a state of physical stillness. You're not doing anything wrong. You're just not moving. You wake up, sit to work, drive, sit to eat, lie down, and repeat. Meanwhile, your body, the only vessel that carries you through this entire life, is slowly losing its vitality simply because you're no longer using it the way it was meant to be used. No one ever told you that daily movement is a part of living wisdom, but if you look deeper, you'll see every feeling of stagnation, fogginess, vulnerability, and lack of motivation can be eased by one simple act: getting your body to move. You don't need to become an athlete. No one's asking you to run a marathon or lift heavy weights, but you do need to start treating your body like the intricate instrument it is, one that rusts if left untouched for too long. A 10-minute workout, a walk without your phone, a simple movement that makes you breathe harder, gets your heart pumping, and brings on a little sweat. These small things are not just physical. They are ways to awaken a part of you that's been asleep for too long. Your initiative, your consistency, your confidence. When you move, you're not just training your body, you're creating movement in your mind. All the clouds of stress, anxiety, and repetitive thinking dissolve more easily when you get your blood flowing again. Some questions cannot be answered by sitting still and thinking. They unravel while you walk, while you breathe deeply, while you feel the strength in your legs with each step. Movement isn't a way to escape emotions. It's a way to enter them with clarity and intention. You'll be surprised to find that after just a few minutes of movement, you no longer think the same way. Negative thoughts fade, heavy emotions feel lighter, not because they've vanished, but because they no longer control you. You regain control over your internal experience through the rhythm of your body. Your body is a machine built for motion. When you sit still for too long, you don't just weaken your muscles, you weaken your will. Every time you tell yourself, I don't have time to move today, you chip away at your sense of agency. And over time, those small chips accumulate into a larger feeling that you're no longer in control. But the opposite is also true. Every time you stand up, even for a few minutes, even for a single simple movement, you're telling yourself, I'm still in charge. That is a powerful message. It keeps you going on hard days. It pulls you out of prolonged sluggishness. It gives you back that feeling, I am strong. And that feeling doesn't come from something far away. It comes from the small action you can take right here. Look back. How many times have you felt numb, tired, stuck, but instead of moving to release it, you turn to your phone, junk food, or lay still, waiting for a better mood? But mood doesn't come from waiting. It comes from doing the right thing, even when you don't feel like it. Stand up, change clothes, put on some music, step outside. Or simply do a few basic movements right where you are. It doesn't have to be perfect, it just has to be movement. Your body will respond. Your mind will thank you. And the strongest part of you will begin to return. This isn't theory. I've lived through phases where I felt like all life had drained out of me. But the one thing that pulled me up wasn't a brilliant idea, wasn't an inspiring person. It was the decision to warm up my body. Every time I moved, I didn't just see myself more clearly. I felt like I came back, no longer drifting through things I couldn't control. I knew I still had power over myself. And I hope you feel that too. Each morning, each afternoon, or whenever you can, create a small space for movement. No one needs to see it. No need to film it. No need to post it. This isn't for anyone else but you. To restore that feeling, I'm alive. I still have the strength to do what I choose. I still control how I respond to life. Your body will always tell the truth. And if you listen to it the right way, it will become your strongest ally in the journey of transformation. But you have to begin with one action: gentle, consistent, present. Once, then repeat. From there, your strength will return, not because anything outside changed, but because everything you need to rise is already within you. It's just waiting for you to move and wake it up. There's a subtle kind of escape that many people can't even name. It's running away from yourself. Not by leaving, but by never stopping. You just keep moving, working, replying to messages, finishing tasks, playing the next video, opening the next tab, meeting the next person, without a single moment spent sitting still to ask yourself, how am I really feeling? On the outside, you seem fine. Maybe you're doing your job well. Maybe you still smile at others, but inside, there's a growing emptiness. You feel yourself slowly drifting away from who you are. Not exactly lost, but disconnected from why you started, from what used to make you feel truly alive, clear, and aligned. All clarity begins within, but you can't reach that clarity unless you pause. Stillness can feel unsettling at first because in it, there's no applause, no spotlight, no one telling you what to do next. But it's precisely in that silence that you begin to hear your own voice. The quiet, steady one, never rushing, but always present. It asks you the hard but necessary questions. Where are you going? Are you truly satisfied with how you're living? What are you holding inside that you've never dared to face? These questions aren't meant to make you feel weak. They are meant to bring you home. You cannot heal what you haven't recognized, and you cannot change what you've never dared to look at, but you also won't see anything if you've never paused long enough to observe yourself. Modern life is designed to keep you from ever being quiet. Every app is engineered to fill the emptiness with noise, but noise doesn't make you stronger. It only disconnects you from what truly matters. And gradually, you begin to live as if you don't exist, just someone managing a to-do list, reacting to expectations, chasing standards, no longer remembering what you want, what you need, who you are. I've lived like that. And I know that feeling, that sense of waking up without any clear emotion, working like a high-performing machine with no soul, filling every moment with sound just to avoid hearing the voice inside. It wasn't until I began to sit down, no phone, no agenda, no entertainment, just a blank page and myself, that I started to realize I had lost honesty with myself without even noticing when it happened. And that disconnection doesn't show up as a dramatic crisis. It shows up as erosion of joy, erosion of creativity, erosion of your ability to know what truly matters. No one can do this for you. No one else can sit in your place, breathe your breath, write down your real emotions, or confront the truths you need to face. That work belongs to you. And it doesn't start with something grand. It starts with one small act. Turn everything off and sit with yourself. 5 minutes, 10 minutes, one page, one honest question, one fear brought into the light, one emotion not pushed away, one silence you allow to exist. When you begin doing that every day, even for a short time, you'll notice something. You start to hear yourself more clearly. You realize you're not really angry at work, but at living out of alignment with your values. You realize you're not truly exhausted from your schedule, but from never daring to say no to things you no longer believe in. You realize you're not numb. You've just gone too long without touching the deeper part of yourself. And from there, you can begin to change, not by trying harder, but by being more honest. Honest about the pain you haven't healed, honest about what you truly want, honest about the kind of person you want to be, but haven't yet dared to live as. Stopping is not stopping progress. Stopping is the necessary retreat to help you choose a more accurate direction. Not all movement is progress. Many people are constantly moving just to avoid a question they've never dared to answer. But you're different. You've read this far because you know it's time to live connected, not just efficient. And you are strong enough to begin. You don't need all the answers right now. You just need to give yourself permission to listen. Your body is sending signals. Your heart is carrying messages. Your intuition is knocking. Your job is to open space for them to speak. No pressure, no rush, no judgment, just one gentle but powerful commitment. Each day, you will not abandon yourself because you deserve to be seen, not just by others, but first and foremost by yourself. And from that quiet place, all the clarity you've ever searched for will begin to reveal itself. You don't need to run faster. You just need to stop long enough to head in the right direction. And sometimes that alone is enough to change a life. Everyone has a problem they're fully aware of, yet they choose to bypass it every single day. Not because it's unimportant, but because it's too real, too close, too hard to touch. You might call it fear, unfinished business, a fading relationship, or a subtle sense of wrongness that you've always felt but never dared to name. You haven't forgotten it. On the contrary, you remember it more vividly than anything else. It surfaces in silence when you walk alone, when you lie awake at night, but you quickly push it away with work, with a packed schedule, with social media, with the excuse, I'm not ready. And that postponement, repeated over and over, has quietly become a burden so heavy, you no longer know when it started weighing you down. You're not weak. You've just become used to avoidance, avoiding major decisions, avoiding unprocessed emotions, avoiding the very thing you know is holding you back, but still haven't dared to release. But avoidance doesn't make problems disappear. It only drains your energy in ways you don't understand. It seeps into every choice you make, making you uncertain, easily shaken, easily exhausted. And then you wonder why, despite all your efforts, you still don't feel at ease. The answer lies in what you've left unresolved. Real progress doesn't come from doing one more new thing. It comes from ending something old that continues to silently control you. You can't create a clear future if the unfinished past is still steering your direction. There's a problem you need to face. Maybe it's a promise you broke to yourself, a decision you've delayed far too long, an apology you've never said, a truth you've never admitted. It doesn't have to be fully resolved today, but it does need to be named. Avoidance drains more energy than facing things head on. Confronting something doesn't mean everything will instantly get better, but it's the moment you begin reclaiming your power. When you sit down, take a deep breath, and say honestly to yourself, I know this exists, and I don't want to run anymore, you change, not into someone perfect, but into someone stronger. Because courage isn't acting without fear. Courage is acting even while you're still afraid. You don't have to fix it all in one day, but you do need to start with one step. Write down what you've been avoiding, face it like an adult, no blame, no excuse, just acknowledge it's real and that you're willing to do something about it. Don't let another day go by with that lingering feeling of incompleteness in your heart, because every day you don't touch that issue is another day it quietly steals your confidence, your focus, your peace. So sometimes you don't need to change your whole life. You just need to untie one knot. And from there, everything starts to flow again. I've avoided many things in my life. Important conversations, decisive actions, unfinished work I was afraid I wasn't good enough to complete. I thought I was strong by setting them aside and moving on to other things. But the truth was, I was merely holding together a structure that was already cracking. It wasn't until I chose to sit down and write out everything I hadn't done because of fear that I finally realized what was draining me wasn't too much to do, but the constant weight of living beside something I hadn't faced. And maybe you're carrying that same weight too. Not loud, but heavy. Not obvious, but constant. Start with one simple yet powerful action. Be honest about what you know needs to be addressed. Maybe you need to say something you've been hiding. Maybe you need to make a decision you've postponed for a year. Maybe you need to end something that no longer fits who you are. Or maybe you just need to look at yourself in the mirror and admit that you deserve more clarity than this. Every transformation begins with the courage to face. No sugarcoating, no brushing aside. When you do that, you don't just release yourself from the weight of the past, you create space for your next level of growth. Because on the other side of confrontation lies relief, freedom, strength. And you'll be surprised to find the thing that scared you for so long is far easier to breathe through once you shine a light on it. You don't have to do anything huge, just begin with honesty. Because nothing you avoid can ever be healed through silence, and no lasting peace can be built on an unresolved foundation. Today, pause and choose one thing you know you've been avoiding. Write it down, name it, begin to unravel it, even if just a little. Each small step will return to you a portion of the energy you've lost. And piece by piece, you'll feel lighter, clearer, more alive, no longer the one who avoids, but the one who actively clears the inner space to begin again authentically. That is the greatest gift you can give yourself. And you are strong enough to begin today. How many times have you felt like you've tried so hard, yet still don't know where you're heading? You wake up each morning, begin your day with a dozen thoughts, emotions, tasks. But when the day ends, the only thing you feel is a blur. A sense of exhaustion without knowing whether you've accomplished anything truly meaningful. A sense of running without knowing where the finish line is. That's the consequence of living without recording, not because you lack discipline or ability, but because you've placed no mirror in front of yourself to clearly see your own journey. When you don't write down what you're doing, emotion becomes the only thing that shapes your perception. And emotion, precious as it is, isn't always honest. There are days when you've done a lot, but just one moment of disappointment leads you to conclude the whole day was pointless. There are small but steady improvements that, left unacknowledged, make you undervalue them and lose motivation. Emotions tend to magnify the present, while recording brings you back to reality. And truth, when observed long enough and clearly enough, becomes an incredibly fair teacher. You don't need to write a poetic journal. You don't have to pour your heart out in lyrical prose every day, but you do need a place, a notebook, a sheet of paper, a simple app to write down 3 things: what you did today, what helped you make progress, and what you need to improve. Simple, no evaluation, no judgment, just record. Accumulation doesn't come from big leaps, but from your ability to recognize and repeat the right small steps. And if you never look back, you'll never know what you're repeating. True progress is a sequence of intentional actions, constantly adjusted through observation. And you can't observe what you don't record. Writing, in the truest sense, is how you force yourself to be fully present with reality. No embellishment, no imagination, no snap judgment, just a look. What did I do today? Am I living in alignment with what I say matters? Where am I spending my time? And is there anything I keep repeating that's slowing me down? Those questions, if not written down, will vanish among the thousands of other thoughts. But once written, they become a compass. They keep you from getting lost in your own life. I used to be someone who judged myself entirely based on emotion. Some days I did a lot, but one disappointing conversation made me call it a bad day. At times I tried to change habits, but since I didn't track anything, I had no idea how long I'd sustained it, when I'd started, or how often I'd slipped. And all I was left with was the feeling I'm still not good enough until I began writing it down. Very briefly, just a few lines each day. what time I woke up, what I did right, what distracted me, what I learned, what I was thinking. Those lines seemed ordinary at first, but after a few weeks, I noticed I was starting to understand myself better. I saw recurring patterns. I saw when I was most prone to quitting, to drifting, to veering off track, and I stopped blaming myself because everything became clearer. When you can see clearly, you don't need to beat yourself up. You just need to adjust. And that's the magic of writing things down. It moves you forward with awareness, not just with emotion. You don't need to be perfect every day, but you do need to know how you're living each day. And nothing does that better than documenting your journey. No one else can do this for you. No one else can understand what's going on inside you if you don't write it down. And most importantly, if you don't see how you're progressing, you'll easily lose faith in yourself. Don't let that happen. Start today. Grab a notebook, write down just 5 lines, record the truth. Don't let emotion decide everything, because truth, even when it forces you to face imperfection, is exactly where you'll reclaim your strength. And when you have the truth in front of you each day, you won't need anyone to cheer you on. You'll see for yourself that you're moving forward. And that alone is enough to keep going steadily, intentionally, and in the right direction. The reason most people don't change their lives isn't because they lack ability. It's because they refuse to repeat. Everyone wants fast results, fresh feelings, visible outcomes. But real change, the kind that makes you unrecognizable to yourself, always comes from a long series of repeated actions done so consistently that they become a natural part of who you are. Think about it. You didn't become insecure in one day, nor did you lose your discipline because of a single bad decision. It was all the result of repetition. Repeating negative thoughts, repeating procrastination, repeating the easier path. And conversely, the only way to build an entirely new version of yourself is to repeat the right actions until they're no longer an effort, but your essence. Repetition is the only path that transforms "I'm trying" into "I am this kind of person." And you truly change only when you no longer recognize yourself, when the old you, the old thinking patterns, the familiar reactions are no longer present. All that's left is you, a self rebuilt from deliberate behavior. You may have believed change comes from some explosive moment, a big external push or a sudden burst of inspiration. But inspiration only gets you started. It's repetition that keeps you going. Every time you wake up on time, every time you follow through on a promise, every time you resist distraction and choose what matters more, each of those acts is like carving a small mark into your being. And after hundreds of such marks, the shape of your new self begins to appear. No one sees change as it's happening, not even you. But then one day, you react differently. You stay calm where you once would have lost it. You choose action over delay. You keep your word to yourself instead of making excuses. And that's when you realize you're not the same anymore, not because of some miracle, but because you've silently repeated the right thing long enough to alter your inner structure. Repetition isn't exciting. It's not glamorous. There's no applause, but it's the work that anyone who is truly changed knows well. Without repetition, there's no accumulation. Without accumulation, there's no transformation. Don't believe in overnight change. Don't chase results after just a few tries. That will only lead to disappointment. Instead, choose one thing you know is right and repeat it every day, no matter how you feel. Do it when you're tired. Do it when you're discouraged. Do it even when you see no results, because you don't repeat to get an immediate reward. You repeat to reprogram yourself. And reprogramming is a slow, deep process that requires long-term commitment. Maybe you've never thought you could be disciplined, calm, brave, but none of those traits are innate. They're built by repeatedly acting like the person you want to become. And if you're persistent enough, one day you won't be playing the role of someone strong. You'll truly be that person. No more forcing, no more pretending, no more struggle, because you've been redefined from the inside out. That's the power of repetition. And the most beautiful part is anyone can begin. It doesn't matter how many times you've failed. It doesn't matter how far back you're starting from. What matters is what you choose to repeat today. Do you want to keep repeating distraction or presence, procrastination or action, the behaviors that keep you stuck or the ones that move you toward who you really want to be? Every action you choose today is a brick, and you're building yourself with those bricks. You can't build a castle in one day, but you can build it by repeating one small motion steadily every single day. And one day you'll look around at your life and no longer recognize the old version of you. You'll no longer be asking, how do I change? Because you'll be living in the answer. A person's character doesn't come from what they promise. It comes from every hour they live true to what they've committed to. Promises are easy. Anyone can say they'll change, that they'll start over, that they'll live better, be more mindful, more disciplined. But every promise, no matter how inspiring, is just an empty echo if it's not backed by consistent action. Because the world doesn't judge you by what you intend to do. It only watches how you live hour by hour, day by day. There are people who carry dozens of plans in their heads, but each morning they wake up and negotiate with themselves. They promise to wake up early, then hit snooze. They promise to stay focused, then chase every notification. They promise they'll start writing that book, learn a new skill, face their fears. But everything is always pushed to a better time. Eventually, they stop believing in their own promises. And that's the most dangerous breaking point, not when you lose faith in the world, but when you lose your own self-trust. Character, at its deepest level, is what you do even when no one's watching. It's how you treat yourself when there's no one to impress. It's the repetition of kind, courageous, and right choices, even when you're tired, bored, or tempted to give up. It doesn't come from one dramatic moment or a motivational speech. It comes from the hours you live without betraying what you say you value. I've made plenty of promises to myself. I've written bold declarations like, I will change. I will live differently. I'll start fresh today. But the next day, everything would go back to the same patterns because I didn't understand one simple truth. Commitment is not a statement. Commitment is behavior. And if I didn't turn my promises into daily actions, then all my declarations were just another form of self-deception. You don't need to force yourself to become someone perfect, but you do need the clarity to live each hour aligned with what you say you want. If you say health is important, let your schedule reflect that. If you say you want success, let the time you invest in skill building prove it. If you say you value peace, let the way you respond to conflict reveal that. Everything else, your words, your feelings, your plans, is secondary. Strong people aren't those who are always excited. They're the ones who know there will be bad days, exhausting hours, lost moments, but who still hold to one small commitment. I won't go back to who I used to be. And it's in those seemingly ordinary hours that character is forged. No one builds integrity through a single leap. It's carved bit by bit, like stone shaped over time by dripping water. If you're doubting yourself, if you feel you're no longer reliable in your own eyes, then start again with the smallest thing. 1 hour without scrolling, 1 hour learning something new, 1 hour of exercise, 1 hour living in accordance with what you said matters to you. Then hold on to that, guard it the way you'd guard your honor, because in truth, no one can take your self-respect from you unless you're the first to abandon it. Character doesn't come from reputation. It comes from every hour you live without needing applause. Every act you choose when no one's pressuring you. Every decision you make when no one is watching. And every moment you keep a promise to yourself, even if it's just the promise not to give up today. Live like that long enough, and you won't need to build a personal brand. The way you live will become your clearest identity, and others will begin to see you as someone who carries weight. Not because you talk a lot, but because you do what's right. Not because you're always right, but because you always keep your word. Not because you're perfect, but because you're consistent. That's when you no longer need to prove anything. Your presence alone will earn people's trust. And that trust both your own and that of others, isn't created by one grand act. It's built through every hour you live honestly, rightly, without betraying what you once said was important. Don't just promise to change. Start living as someone who has already changed. Don't just say you want to be more disciplined. Act like someone disciplined, without needing a reason, without waiting for motivation, because in the end, no one remembers what you said. They remember who you were. And that person, the one you are building every hour, is the most honest reflection of what you truly commit to. It doesn't matter how long you've procrastinated, how many times you've broken promises to yourself, or how far you feel from the better version of who you could be. None of that matters anymore if you understand one very simple thing. You can always start over. You don't have to wait for the beginning of the month. You don't need a sudden burst of inspiration. You don't need the perfect conditions to align. You just need 1 hour that truly belongs to you to reset everything. 1 hour can't change your entire life, but it can change the direction of your life. And sometimes all the difference in the world lies in that one small decision. 1 hour where you don't scroll through your phone mindlessly, but pick up the book you've forgotten. 1 hour where you don't lie down and let everything drift, but get up and begin writing out the plan for your life. 1 hour where you don't listen to the voices that make you doubt yourself, but sit still and ask what actually matters. 1 hour, if you live fully in it, can become the moment you'll forever remember as the starting point of a new you. Change isn't the result of a series of emotional highs. It's the result of choosing a specific moment to return to yourself, not chasing the world, not trying to prove anything to anyone. Simply this: you sit down, look at your reality, and choose again to live in a way that is truer, better, and more worthy. And that moment can be today. No need to wait. Don't be fooled into thinking you need a long-term plan, a perfect system, or a strong wave of motivation. You just need to start with 1 single hour, but live that hour with your full presence. If you've abandoned yourself for thousands of hours, then 1 hour of returning to yourself is already an incredible act of courage. And sometimes the greatest thing you can do for yourself is not to change everything, but to master one small thing and do it well. From there, you begin to rebuild the foundation step by step, action by action, choice by choice, no longer betraying yourself. People often ask, where should I begin? The answer is always the same. Right where you are with what you already have, and from the moment you decide not to retreat anymore. Even if you failed yesterday, even if you procrastinated this morning, even if half your life has gone the wrong direction, no one can stop you from dedicating 1 hour this afternoon to return to the person you want to become. Starting over doesn't require a ceremony. It requires an hour, one action, one clear choice. Turn off the distractions. Create a quiet enough space where you can actually hear yourself. Do something you know is right, not for anyone to see, not for anyone to applaud. Do it with kindness, do it with certainty, then do it again tomorrow. That's how you begin again. Quietly, steadily, but sustainably. You can start over. You don't need anyone's permission. You don't need approval. You don't need a spotless past. You only need to dare to give yourself 1 hour to begin living as the person you know you can be. And in that process, you'll notice something strange. When you start living authentically, everything around you begins to shift, not because the world has changed, but because you're changing the way you interact with it. You're no longer running. You're no longer delaying. You're no longer living from fear. You're living from intention, from self-respect, and from a new foundation, yourself, the self that has been consciously chosen again. Remember, every hour you live in alignment with what you've chosen is a quiet but powerful declaration that you no longer let life decide for you. You are standing up, claiming your place, starting over, not loudly, but more powerfully than ever. And when you do that every day, you don't just change yourself. You inspire the people around you. because they'll look at you and realize if you have the courage to begin again, maybe they can too. So if you're feeling lost, off track, disconnected from yourself, let today be the day you come back. No need to declare it. No need to make everything perfect. Just 1 hour. 1 hour lived truthfully. 1 hour without running. 1 hour choosing what's right. And that 1 hour, if you can hold on to it, will become the foundation from which you rebuild everything. Starting over doesn't have to be grand. It's simply this: you choose yourself and you do it today,